Hail and welcome to our first candid conversations with local people about the local issues that are going on. I'm joined here today by
Sam Haskins. I'm standing for re-election.
Imogen and James. I have just moved back to the island from university.
And James Davey. I've just moved to the island because I like the island.
To be fair, we're both imported. So the ones in white, imported, the ones in black are locals. The main reason why we're talking today, we've chosen over the next few series that we're doing to actually speak to the actual people to find out what we can do. And one of the biggest things is keeping our young people here, or at least enticing them back when after university and other things. Now, both Imogen and James, they've decided to come back. Imogen, you're 20?
21.
21, James?
I'm 23.
Yeah, so they're planning their life, getting settled here. We really want to know why from them that made them come back, what we can do more to keep our young people here, and you know where we go from there. So, questions over to you.
Well, I guess I thought you were the compere, but
to be fair, I am the compere. You get the first question.
Okay. Right. In a nutshell, then. Imogen and James, why did you come back?
That's a loaded question. But if we break it down into sections, the first was probably the healthcare system.
Okay.
Over there in A&E, you could be waiting up to 12 hours to get seen for an emergency problem. And over here, with insurance, obviously, it's a much better quality of people come to your aid. You get more treatment.
Yeah.
Everyone's treated better over here as well.
Yeah.
It's just better quality.
Yeah. I must admit, me coming here for the first time, been here a few months now. I was amazed when even without private, I don't have to do it on private. I walked into the waiting room, I was in and out within 10 minutes, and there's actually a sign that says, if someone doesn't see you within 15 minutes, come and let us know. Now, my experience is in England, if you go to the desk before being called, you'll get just an evil look and told to sit back down. So it was very different from what I'm used to receiving. And that was just on the States care, you know, without any private, the way I was treated, and it's been, for me, very different.
Well, it's the same with doctor's appointments. Like, for a doctor's appointment over there when I was ill at university, they would have one in 2 to 3 weeks for me. Over here, I get seen the same day when I call up.
Yeah.
There's always seems to be a slot. There always seems to be something that they can do at least to help, you know?
Yeah.
And that's important, especially when if you're ill, you can't work. If you can't work, you don't have the money. If you can't have money, you can't live.
Yeah.
Okay, so healthcare was something that pulled you here. Were there? Well, we'll go with what else attracted you here, and then after I'm going to ask you what if there are any barriers, and what do you think that me as a deputy could do to try and help people?
Well, I'd say definitely employment. So in the UK, I was working behind a bar in a golf club. I've worked at 2 golf clubs and a theatre, and I could only seem to find bar work or anything related to the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get into finance, and it's so much harder trying to find work in finance, and you'd have to have a degree. I've only got a music performance degree, and although it's useful if I want to go into music, it's not something I found that I wanted to go into, because in the UK it seemed that it's an extremely difficult industry to get into. So I wanted to look into finance because it's there's more consistency with finance, and in order to get your foot in the door, it was the doors were already locked. There weren't any doors to get your foot into.
Yeah.
So Guernsey's got a lot more opportunities. You've got trainee roles, junior roles. There's so much more to offer, and because it is a hub for finance, it's great for that industry. But like your work, you're working at First.
Yeah, I'm a music teacher at Thirst.
But in the UK, you know, if you wanted to do music teaching, you join a school and then, you know, you wouldn't be paid very well. You know, they would take most of the revenue or the income that you're making from the students that you're teaching. Or you could go freelance, and it's hard to do it that way. You know, you can build a client base, but that's not a good income. You still need a job, and if you want a proper job that's not going to pay you peanuts like the, you know, hospitality paid me, you're not going to get a good life, or you know, the life that you'd like to achieve.
I must admit, working in recruitment myself, a lot of the finance companies, mortgage lenders, brokers, they have some great trainee roles where if you've got, you know, not to a point where you have to have a degree, but a lot of the time they look for that person that, you know, their passion, what they've got, they will overlook if you haven't got a degree. Some of them, you know, they'll go, we'll see that person, give them a shot, you know, and we can go from there, and you have great progression on this island, which I found, which is brilliant. And not just in finance, I do a lot of commercial that I lead up, and there's a lot of opportunity for those people. So that ordinarily in the UK, I think because they have a much larger pool of people, they have more choice. So they can afford to go, oh no, actually no, you've got to have this, and this. They can afford to do that. Whereas Guernsey, it's a smaller island, it's a limited amount of people, so they really want to get the best out of the people that they have here, or have coming over. They will say, you know, there's certain things that they will, I won't say overlook, because there are obviously criteria, but there are exceptions that they'll make, because just to get that right person. So I feel like you get more of a chance here. You know, it's the whole kind of big fish in a little pond scenario, whereas in the UK you are just literally number 1 million on the NHS 6-year waiting list.
Well, exactly. You know, in the UK they look at your academic success and say, well, you're going to do well because of that. You know, you are numbers to us. Whereas over here they look at your potential, what you could provide, going off of, you know, you basically, not just, you know, what you have on your CV.
Okay, so over here we do have quite high employment. So obviously businesses are trying to look for people who have the right skills, and in order to attract them from overseas or to train here, they do have to give quite a good salary. But what do you think about the level of salary that you are offered over here, coming back, you know, freshly coming back here, and how does that relate to the cost of rent and all the other costs of living? So how does it compare to England as well?
Well, I would say wages and salaries are definitely higher than the UK, but it's still not enough to pay for rent or a mortgage. You know, property over here is still really expensive. So, you know, it goes back to inflation. The more you pay people, you know, the higher cost everything's going to be. So it's, you know, it's finding that balance. But you know, at the moment, it's still, especially for young people starting jobs, it's really low.
So as an example, with the UK, obviously I only was back in the UK 4 years before coming here last year. But one of the main things that I noticed in regards, obviously, it is expensive here at the moment. The house prices, we all know the housing crisis. But for example, there are still some benefits. Like in the UK, my council tax every month, at the time I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment, it was £246 per month, every month, you know, in council tax. And that, you know, you guys don't have that, I believe, over here. Just,
We've got TRPs, so
TRP.
taxable rate on property. Generally it's the property owners who pay that, so it's a lot cheaper than your council tax.
Yeah.
And I must say, because there's...
Did you think about that when you were coming back here? Did you think about all of the costs? Did you tot up? Well, I pay 20% VAT. I pay my council tax, and those bills that might be higher, for example, electricity.
I mean, you know, because of those costs, the quality of life here is much better. So we did weigh it up, and it is better here. Because, you know, and it's also peace of mind as well, because you're not thinking, oh, I've got another bill to pay on top. You know, just because I've got a property, because I've got a roof over my head. You know, over here you think, oh, okay, I've got a roof over my head. Someone's not taxing me because I'm trying to keep my shelter. It's, you know, they want me to live here. They want me to have somewhere to live. You know, property is more expensive, but it's easier to get onto the property ladder because it's easier to save because of those low costs or you know, no costs almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm just wondering from government's point of view. Obviously, as a politician, I want to know how at least perception-wise, what we can do more or better, so that we're encouraging more people to stay on island. Because there's our birth rates, our demographics are changing, and well, if we're looking at the long-term future, we're going to need to address things like that, and keeping our young people on island is absolutely one of those.
I mean, the appeal for me to come back was mostly like I got to see my family again and stuff like that.
Mm.
And I think family is a big thing for those who do come back, obviously.
Mm.
But it's also the fact of I know Guernsey. I have lived here my whole life, and I know the way it works.
So it's safe
and
as
it's
well.
safe, yeah. It's reliable. It doesn't really change like the UK does from city to city, town to town, sort of
Yeah.
thing. Ways that the government could do better is a tricky one, because you don't always have the funding to do stuff. You don't always have the votes to do something, you know? It's got to be a unanimous decision. But I think what they could do is listen to the students more, maybe go like, because most people my age don't know about the election and stuff. Like I didn't know until recently that it was happening.
Mm.
And with some more preparation and some more pushing in the right direction, maybe handing out a form to ask them yourselves about what they like about Guernsey, and
More participation,
Yeah.
asking you, involving you more.
yeah, we want to be involved, because at the end of the day it's our future as well, you know.
Yeah.
One of the problems that we have in contacting students is data protection. It's a frustration of mine all the
Yeah.
time. So yes, we may have, because if you, for example, if we've given a grant, we may have your email address or your contact details, but we're now trying to contact you, ask you for information that's not related to the reason why we have your contact. So these types of things really do put a spanner in our works.
They do. It's a tricky one to get around at the end of the day. But I feel like people just want to be more involved because it's their decision. Even adults, like, I mean, we're eventually going to grow up, but we're still going to feel how we felt this time, like in the sense of like, we're still going to know how we felt about coming back.
Mm.
So even if it's adults as well who have left and come back, or if it's adults who have moved over, sort of thing, they're still going to remember their decision to move over and come back here, basically.
So maybe having more of an involvement, a direct involvement, would also encourage more to stay if they felt like they did actually have some sort of contribution towards it. You know, rather than just looking at the Facebook pages and everything like that. If they actually had some, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think government do need to do is get the younger voice. That of course is it. However, things like this, great, getting people talking. That is definitely something that we need to do. It's what's refreshing to hear is that you understand that funding is one of the biggest things. So yes, government can do anything it wants. It can say, right, in fact, you guys, if you want to buy a house, we can reduce your document on your first house. We can
Zero
lower
deposit.
yeah, we can help with all of that, but they all cost money. It all costs money. So you know, you're going to have deputies out there going, yeah, well, I'm going to do this. But you said, Amy, that it was a unanimous vote. It's not. It doesn't need to be unanimous. It just needs to be 51%. So as long as you've got the majority of the vote, that's it. But that's hard to get. I mean, it is hard to get.
Yeah. Especially when it's coming up to election time and people vote or abstain for certain reasons because of, you know, you do see it and you do get it, and it's pretty. It is pretty obvious. I think a lot of them. And I'm not even a local. Sorry, I am imported. However, I do see that. It's pretty obvious.
I think a lot of people understand. People who are listening in to the States there, to the Assembly, to the BBC, they're listening to the debate, and they absolutely know when someone's making a vote, they're doing it because they think, oh, it's unpopular, so I'm not going to vote for it.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know,
What's
that is the right thing. It's not going to be popular, but it's the right thing, especially from a long-term financial point of view. That's the right thing to do. But it's a difficult decision. But yeah.
I do think that's the key long term. Like, you know, the short term fixes to make happy, or, you know, it's not working. It's never going to work. It's those long term decisions. But like I said, if people are more informed, not like you said, not just the youth, but every age of the island, if they're more informed, if there's more transparency on exactly what's going on, not, you know, closed behind doors, then maybe people would understand the reasons for this is what needs to be done and what is actually going to equate to, because no one wants to do anything to hurt other people or their incomes or their prospects. You know, it's ridiculous. So I do think that'd be a really good point of just more encouragement in for everyone, really, by participation, I guess.
Yeah. Do you think that young people as a whole understand Guernsey politics, understand what's going on in the Assembly each month, what's being discussed? Do you think they know?
No, I don't know.
Right. But you've only just moved back.
I have just only moved back, but I feel like as a Guernsey citizen I should know,
Right, okay.
but I don't, you know. And it's because, one, I haven't made myself aware to it, but it's also because it hasn't been made aware to me either. I could go out and look for the resources, but when you're in school and learning, that's where they give you the resources.
Yeah.
I want to. You guys should be making the effort to come and give us those resources.
Well, I mean, Imogen, James, that's why we've got this podcast now. That's one of those things to try and help and increase that conversation. I'm not sure if I know too much about Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Like TikTok, I don't know anything about TikTok.
I mean, it's that TikTok is what is used by
content creators.
Well, yes, but like, you know, our generation and younger, and some millennials, and some old folk as well.
Hang on,
I think compared to them, I think we both know what category we fall into. I'm going to label us experienced.
Experienced people. It's, you know, TikTok is used by the younger generation, and that's how they get their news now. That's how we get our news. I still like to go online and look at articles. If I see something on social media, I will go and do some more research, and that's what a lot of our age group does as well. But I think, you know, it's the desensitisation of that type of social media that's making younger people feel that politics is unappealing to them. So they're not you know, indulging themselves in that political world and that aspect of their homeland, because they feel that they're getting enough news and coverage from the platforms that they watch. So I think social media plays into it. You know, it's a big part of their lives. You know, it's a big part of our lives.
Is it fair to say that video content though is the prime?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
Because here we have, you know, the Guernsey Press is a paper. So I don't know if you guys read the paper or whether you prefer social media. I'm looking at videos.
I'm scrolling up and down.
Scrolling.
I only read the paper if her grandparents give me a paper.
Oh God, I feel so old.
You don't read the paper.
I do when I'm in the queue in the co-op, and it's just right there, and I read the headline, and it's depressing. So
But the
That's it.
paper,
I get another.
the problem for me with the paper is that it's so massive and it's so flimsy, and I find it difficult to turn a page and read it like
Okay,
a
that
book.
one I'm not going to be able to change.
Yeah.
Fix the
Maybe
paper.
any of the people can help with that one. Change the paper. No.
Please change the paper. If it was like a little notebook, that'd be great.
Sort of
or a
Kindle.
screen.
Something,
Yeah.
a screen. That's basically
Because
sums it
that's
up.
what younger people want, though. That's they want a screen that they can continuously swipe on, because that's what they've
with
got used
links
to.
to other things and go further and further down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, something
So
that's
it would be
user-friendly.
quite interesting to set up a run by people like yourself, a dedicated one for the government side of things, but run by the youngers that have the links that you do the content basically, and you reach out to people your age and in your generation to include them in government.
And that way you could also put on there like Google Doc forms and stuff like that, so people can just send in whatever they want and you can analyse all of it.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, that could be something that this evolves into, some kind of sharing platform.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of kids these days, and they're glued to their phones. Their head is down here. They're walking. They almost get run over by buses, but they're glued to it. But the attention span is very limited. So they're just scrolling for it's the next one, the next one, the next one. So when you've got a subject like politics that people are being drawn to, but how do you keep that attention?
How do you engage?
How do you engage?
It's
Because I
like-
see a lot of these podcasts, but I don't know how many young people are getting engaged in them.
Yeah.
You have to get engaged in something by, like all the YouTube videos, they have some sort of caption underneath them like, this concerns you, or this is critical, this is important.
Okay.
You've got to grab their attention with a headline. It's
Okay.
the first thing you see. And
All about headlines.
yeah,
Algorithm.
but then you've also got to,
Algorithms.
and pushing it to the top of that page. Like if something's really actually important, put it up there because it's going to be the first thing you see right at the top of your page when you scroll in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's there. And people are more alert in the morning, technically. Sometimes. I'm not speaking for everyone, but I'm generally more. I take
you wait till you get you wait till you get a few more years older.
I mean, TikTok and YouTube brought out YouTube Shorts, so which is very much like TikTok. So you get a short hit of a story that you're going to be interested in, and it's all related. You know, there's an algorithm, so it builds up a list of videos and content that you will want to see, and it will remember that. It's very much like a newspaper because you've got like headlines and articles, and if you don't want to read the full article, you go on to the next article. Whereas these short videos are very much the same because you'll start watching it, and if it's something you're not interested in, you go on to the next thing. Whereas if you have news coverage in that format, specifically for Guernsey news, the UK could even develop their own one, then I think younger people will be more inclined to watch the news and find out more about their local community, especially as they're getting older, because they'll want to know what's going on, because it affects their life completely.
Yeah.
They will be engaged in it, and if there's something that's not relevant to them, or something that's current in their life, then they can just scroll on to the next news article. So you can create short videos related to that, and then if they want to see more content, then they can go on to
They can choose to.
and do more research, like what I said I do. If I see something interesting, then I go onto the internet and I do more research.
Yeah.
It's like people don't want to hear like a narrative anymore. They want to hear straight facts. If you don't give us the facts within a certain amount of time, we move on.
And that
So
does
the
come.
attention span.
Yeah, the attention span has dropped, but that's just because of everything. Like
Social
videos
media.
become shorter, captions have become shorter. People.
I wish advertising would become shorter. I'm not gonna lie. Well, come on, everyone's done it when you're on YouTube, and it's like 30
you're waiting.
seconds, and then
You're waiting.
you do it, and then it goes, there's one of 3.
Yeah.
And you're like, is it really worth watching these kittens, run around for
Yes,
5?
it is.
Okay, okay. My attention span on kittens and puppies actually is quite big.
But it's like we don't like to dilly dally anymore. You just tell us how it is, and of course people might have different opinions, but then make one video for one, make one video for the other,
Yeah.
and then
Specific subjects.
specific.
Okay,
Break
so
it
that's-
down, make it simple.
So you get people watching these short videos and developing their own opinions, and then they don't want to have a debate or a discussion. They just want to say, well, this is what I think. That's right.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to try and work out a plan. They just say, well, this is how it's going to be, and I know that it's going to work. But they don't know the facts,
Yeah.
which is why they need to learn about the facts. So things in the videos that they're watching need to be integrated where they're actually taking in facts so
Yeah.
that they can understand the
Yeah.
fundamentals of what they're actually talking about.
Yeah.
But there's a problem here, because if your attention span is so limited, and Alanna, you said, well, I just looked at the headline, because that's what people are going for. They're going for the headlines, and you don't get any detail in there. You don't get the true story. You don't get those facts.
No.
And I mean, I don't know about you, but what do you think of the written media here? The legacy media, they call it. What do you think about it? Do you trust the old school media? Do you think everything that they say is true and fair and correct and a balanced argument? I mean, one of the things I would say is media, bad news, negative news sells more. So any of these that are businesses are going to promote slightly negative slant in the very least, because it makes them more money.
I mean, in the newspapers and one of the magazines that your grandfather gave me, I was going just for the negative articles and the headlines, and you know, it was more about America and you know, current wars and how it's affecting our economies. I wasn't, you know, I scrolled over, you know, oh, my dog's really cute. How cute it is. You know, I could not care less.
Although, to be fair, in the paper the other week was I thought it was lovely, the hugging carrots. I don't know if anyone else saw that, but the two carrots that were pulled up from, they were hugging, and it actually did look like they were hugging. I'm really sad, but yeah, that was really nice.
But
I missed that one.
But everyone's interested in different things, which is why
Yeah.
it's so hard to pin a headline to someone who will actually read it. Like, Alanna prefers the cute stuff, James prefers the negative topics. I prefer the brain rot material that's just going to not make any sense, and
that's where the dopamine addiction comes from. Really, it's just it's mainly TikTok, isn't it?
you can't make everyone listen. That is always going to be the problem.
So it's variety. So these things should be split into small chunks so that I'm going to appeal to every one. Each one that you do want is going to go, right, okay, I'm going to grab that one, and that's all I want. I just want as much information as quickly as I can, and then that's it.
Yeah, like a quick pros and cons list. Like, this topic, this specific thing that we're voting on this week, this will be the pros, this will be the cons of it. Boom,
Yeah.
done.
Okay,
Bish, bash, bosh.
I understand that.
I like it. No,
And
I
then
think
people
that's
can weigh it up and be like, yeah, okay, that's
I think there
It's
should
worth it.
definitely be more involvement with the community, 100%.
I like the very quick brief pros, cons. Here's what we're doing, and
Yeah, but make
and
sure
then
it's just
afterwards.
one thing at a time.
Because that's
You know,
something
like
that would appeal.
the two schools, you just put that as a title, a headline,
Yeah.
technically, and then you put pros on one side, cons on the other.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have to show your face, just a black screen with a line down the middle.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really good to reach out for more politicians to go, right, okay, look, here you go, this is what we're doing, so get you more interested. But how do we help you, pull you back to the island? Now, I know you guys have already chosen to.
Yes. So you're great advocates
But
for it. So what would you tell all those
Friends,
counterparts?
families, is there?
What would you say to those people sitting there now thinking that they're going to go to university soon? They'll be off to university in September. They're planning on staying in London or staying in Birmingham, Manchester, wherever they go to, and they're not going to come back, because whatever world they feel Guernsey is. What would you actually, having experienced, you've gone away to university, you've experienced those cities, you've experienced the healthcare system, I remember about the rents and the other stuff that you've come up against. So what would you say to them?
Some people can make it work. And I respect those people who do, and some people can. But for me, coming back was a sigh of relief. You know, I wasn't in a strange place anymore. I wasn't trying to find a place that I could fit in when I already had this place.
Yeah.
You know, it's more of the fact of when I went to uni in Guildford. My last student house was in a very, what they would call the druggy area of Guildford.
Questionable area of Guildford.
Questionable area.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, there was always the smell of weed around everywhere.
Yeah.
There was, the place we were renting was falling apart.
It was dire.
Absolutely falling apart. And the landlord, we never met him. He didn't come say it. He didn't come and like fix any of the problems. Just ghosted us basically.
Yeah.
And over here, I've had full open communication. The quality of life in the sense of the streets are basically clean.
Oh.
The recycling and everything like that.
I know you love the
I
recycling.
love a good recycling.
We're good over here. We're
It's
one of the
clean.
top in the world.
It's not feeling like I need to go and have a deep clean shower after every time I leave my house, you know?
Yeah.
It's not feeling that if I slip over in the street, that I'm going to get infected with something or other, you know?
Or mugged.
Yeah, or mugged.
Yeah.
And my animals are safe
Yeah.
and stuff like that. There was some cats near my near my student house that got mauled to death by a couple of teenagers. And it was awful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And after I heard that, I wasn't going to let my cats out,
Yeah.
especially not around that specific area. And I know not everywhere in the UK is like that area, but when you are a student and that's all you can afford,
Yeah.
you have to make it work.
Yeah.
There's not another option.
Yeah.
We weren't even in the centre of Guildford.
Yeah.
Still had to pay for travel in every morning and stuff.
Yeah.
And that can take up to half an hour, maybe to like 3 hours to get into wherever you're going, you know? Like if I was working in London, it'd be a lot different.
Travel's obviously one thing as well. I don't know for any people thinking of now working in London, but at the time when I first moved back to England, it was going to be just over £5,000 a year for my train ticket. So I got quite a well-paid job in London that I was offered in a hotel as a manager. But once you took out the travelling, and I was only 20 minutes from London, so it's not like I'm Surrey. Well, only 20 minutes, but it was just over £5,000. So you take that out your wages straight away with the higher tax, the higher national insurance, all those higher things you take out. I was getting it wouldn't be worth it. I could actually worked in McDonald's for the same price as a manager job in one of the 5-star hotels in London because of those factors. So, you know, I got quite shocked when I got here, and it was, what is it, £1 for the bus?
Well, if you get a puff and pass.
The perfect, I love it.
I
I
have
love
a
it. Do you really
pass.
understand why like Guernsey's the cutest place? Without being patronising, but everyone is absolutely amazing here. So, yeah, £1 or cheaper with the puffin pass. It's like,
Well, in England, if it was raining, it would be a 40-minute walk for me to get to work.
yeah,
And if it was raining, I could get an Uber, but an Uber was like 10 quid
yeah,
both ways. Well, one way and then
yeah.
back
So
another
20 quid a day, 5
And
days a week.
What if I was really tired, or I was working in
Late.
hospitality
Yeah.
as well, so sometimes it was even 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm getting more money from working more, but
Yeah.
I'm also losing more money from travelling more, you know?
Yeah.
Did you know with the buses, all of these, there's our buses are cheap, right? £1,
Yeah.
pound a journey. But that's only because we subsidise them. So government subsidise them to the tune of, say, around £3 a journey.
Oh.
So the states give a grant to the bus provider here, so which is great. So we've got artificially low.
I mean, seeing as
travel costs,
most of the
which-
jobs are in the more built-up areas such as St Peter Port or St Sampson's, so people on the other side of the island who need to get across the island, anyone who's on the other side of the island who needs to get to those places are paying less for transport because they're being subsidised, which is another opportunity for people to come over and work here, because travel is paid for somewhat.
And it's great for people like students as well. Like my little sister, she's not old enough to work yet, she's not, but she can still get the bus into town with her friends with a
It's free. It's free for her.
Yeah, exactly. She can hop on a bus and
if you're in full-time education, it's free.
And that's great, because especially if my mother can't pick her up, drop her off, she can get around by herself, and it gives her a sense of responsibility as well.
Yeah.
And
But
that's
the problem
really
is we can't afford it. Also, so we're looking at around £100 million in deficit for government. So we're going, how are we going to afford this? Because we can get people back on island, with incentives perhaps, all costs money, but we've already got a deficit. So things like bus fares is just going to have to go up. We're going to have paid parking. All these little things, we're going to have to go, right, we'll introduce that so that we can get more and more money, because, well, essentially people don't like paying more tax, do they?
No.
I mean, the point that I wanted to make was employment. So if companies are encouraged to provide more trainee and junior roles for people who don't have the qualifications for a job that you would need in the UK. So like I said, I was looking for work in finance in the UK, but I couldn't get into anything because I needed a degree in finance or economics or accountancy. And you have to go to uni for 3 to 4 years to achieve something like that. So if the government encourage schools to provide qualifications at secondary school level, such as like business or anything, anything to do with what's already available on the island, but where they can take it further, and then they can do it at sixth form as well, or college, or I'm imported, so I'm not sure exactly what's here. But then they can do those qualifications and then get into those jobs without needing to get a degree, because then they're going off to the UK feeling that if they get a degree over in the UK, they can stay in the UK and get those jobs. And sometimes they come back like we did, because I'm not actually back, I'm here for the first time living, because I couldn't get work there, and vice versa. I've come over here because I couldn't get anything in the UK, and I've got a degree in music, but I want to work in finance because music isn't going to do anything for me in the UK. But that's a different barrel of monkeys, I suppose. So it's also the education that needs to be encouraged to children, so that they can have access to those jobs, and then they can get access to
You can't see the cat.
Sorry, you can't. So their cat is just walking along. Beautiful cat is just walking along, and we're all just trying not to watch this cat. Sorry, James, you were saying.
So that they can have access to those trainee and junior roles, because I did finance at GCSE and A-level equivalent and business studies. So I had a really good head start in getting a job here, whereas in the UK, I couldn't get niche.
Yeah.
So it's that, I think, that kind of...
so maybe a bit more upskilling.
Yeah.
In the sense, even apprenticeships, anything that kind of...
Yeah.
So for context, so in Guernsey we've got 16 years is your compulsory education, so from 5 to 16. But after that, you can leave, and you can go straight into a job. And lots of people do. They go into finance, they do lots of people go and get jobs. So, and we've got very low unemployment here. So we do have the opportunities over here for people to go into finance, because we are a finance hub. I think the question is, in this day and age, you guys will probably see it a little bit more than me, and I'm really keen on it with artificial intelligence. But with everything that's changing in the world, fast-paced digital world that we have, I think people are going to have to keep up with their skills and start going from job to job, career to career. That's the bit that I think you need to learn. It's the transferable skills in between any niche that you've found.
Like, yeah, you can't just have the qualifications. You've got to impress your interviewer person. Like, be nice, be open, be sociable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think being more hands-on. Like, I volunteer. As soon as I got on the island, I was like, right, I want to give back. I volunteer for Rainbows. The Girl Guiding and the set, they're a great association. They do real amazing stuff with the guys and the girls, and I love that. So you have to kind of, there are loads of volunteer jobs out there as well that they're crying out for volunteers. Obviously the recruitment agency that I work for, Source, they actually have a dedicated volunteer section. Even having that extra on your resume stands you out from the others, which is always good to get behind you as well. Plus you're giving back and helping out the island at the same time, which brings back, you know, the community effort on Liberation Day. You know, that bunting, you know, the community got together and made that amount of bunting. Think what they could actually do
if they put their minds
with everything else, you know, but something they want to. You know, when someone wants to do something,
they'll hyperfixate on it and do it.
Yeah,
that's good on the island as well, because it's more recognised, because it's a smaller community. It's only a small island. Whereas if you did something like that in the UK, they wouldn't think anything of it.
Well, with
which is really sad.
On the subject of AI, there was actually, just going back on recruitment, there was actually what was it? It was in the news the other week. It actually came out that people are now in interviews. It's a must-ask question: is will my role be replaced by AI in the next 10 years? Because it's now
for the employee.
Yeah, for the employee to ask. So I go along to a job interview and I will ask, this is a brilliant role, yeah, okay, you've got the job, brilliant, however, will AI replace my role in the next 10 years? So that was something, I think it was in the Times last week, just to say this is what people are now doing because of the advancements and possibilities of AI.
From what I did in my master's dissertation was on, I basically did a survey, and I wrote an original song, and I gave the same lyrics to AI, and I asked them to write a song around it, and I presented it to people and said, which is the real one, basically.
Yeah.
And most people thought mine was the real one, which was great.
Great.
But it's still going to progress further than that, you know? And funnily enough, one of the people who thought the AI was the real one, I asked some questions at the end that said, do you think AI is scary? Do you think it should be implemented? It was like, no, I'd never want to see AI in anything. And yet they thought AI was the real one.
Yeah.
And if you can't tell the difference, then it's scary, you know? And that's what they were going on about. They were like, nothing should be AI, like, we should all be natural and everything. And I'm like, what you heard was not natural, unfortunately.
Well, we're very lucky. We've heard you sing in the Foresters, haven't we? And yeah, you have an amazing voice.
Thank
so
you won't hear me very often.
We got you up once
Yeah.
got you up. Yeah, now just spectating. I must admit, I do occasionally sing. Not as good as you though.
No, you have an amazing voice.
You were great. Well, guys, any more questions?
That's a thinking face.
Well, it is, because
I'm glad it was a thinking face.
If there's one thing that you can tell, not just me as a politician, because in the election, you guys can't vote for in this coming one.
No.
But in the coming one, if you could ask them, the 38 prospective, if you could ask them one thing, one question, what would it be?
I mean, for me, it would be like, I don't really care about what they say they're going to do, because at the end of the day, if they don't get enough votes to do it, it won't matter.
Yeah.
I want to know what their values are and what do they value, you know? What is close to them and what do they feel passionate about?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you feel passionate about something, you'll do it.
Yeah.
And you'll push more for it.
Yeah, the bunting proves that.
Yeah. So I want to know what makes them tick, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Well, maybe I'll get a few on here, and then we can ask them some of those. Right, let's get into what your values are, and then other people can see that. And really, because I think a lot of it is, you've got a manifesto, and you can say it on there, and you can say, right, these here's what I want to change. Here's what I want to do better. But you don't really get to converse like we are here.
Yeah.
It's hard to really get to.
My generation would so much prefer if they were talking on a screen like this and they could see facial expressions, they could see, because it makes you feel like you know the person.
Yeah.
And people are more inclined to probably vote for who they know better, you know?
Well, yeah.
Or who's, giving
Well,
the right emotion.
Yeah, not that who they know, because they might know someone and go, ooh, I know exactly who that is. But no, but I know what you mean. If you can relate to that person.
Yeah. If you
Okay.
have the same passion as that person, then it's going to be an automatic click.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point.
James.
I'm not really sure, to be honest.
You could ask. So if you could ask any prospective, any deputy that's standing for re-election, anyone who is just just said, you know what? Yeah, I think I'll put my hat in the ring for politics. If you could ask them anything, what would it be?
I mean, it's pretty broad, but probably what policy do you have or have you created that is going to have the biggest impact on the community on the island?
Yeah.
And just see what they say, because if they if it's something, they can't just say, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to build all these houses, and then not have any funding behind it or a plan that's actually going to work.
Viable.
It's and then you can work out just going off their answer, you can try and work out whether they've actually got it together in their head.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what you've done is asked. Well, you've asked that question, which I like, but it's actually a difficult one. It's a difficult one because I'm going to try and answer it now. For me.
Oh God.
So, one of the things that I think we really need to sort out here in this next 4 years is balancing our books. So I told you about the deficit of 100 million.
Yeah.
So we've got something like 150 million to spend in the next 4 years in infrastructure, right? That's all we've got. But as you can imagine, the school costs 80 odd million. So the hospital, that's 120 million. All these things cost a lot of money. Now, if we want to incentivise people to come here, we want to build more houses, all of that costs money. So that is the biggest thing, that the most important thing that needs to be addressed. It's just the most important thing, because everything else comes from that. It was a difficult one.
Yeah.
It's a tough one to me, saying, well, we need to do that, and the way that I would do that is what it's going to have to be. So the Assembly has already agreed to put in a goods and services tax at 5% or 6% if we take food off it. But it's not just that; it's part of a whole package. So increasing the allowance and then restructuring your social security, and actually it made 60% of households better off. So it was quite a progressive package. So GST itself being quite regressive, but the package took it into being progressive. So that is the one that I'd do, so that we can actually get the money, so that we can fix some of these problems. I know you didn't technically ask me that, but whilst I'm here,
but that's the sort of thing.
To.
I want to know is, how are you going to achieve that kind of goal?
Yeah.
So, if people are just going to sort of stand and say, well, like Parliament in the UK, you get a lot of people who aren't going to give you the workings out and the facts. Nick Ferrari on LBC was interviewing I can't remember her name, but they were they're planning on employing, I think she said, 200,000 police officers, and they said they had like £80 million
I remember this. Yeah.
and that worked out to paying them about £10,000 or £11,000 each a year.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then she was sort of like, you know, backpedaling.
Yeah.
On what she was saying, and she was trying to make herself look like she knew what she was talking about, but either she didn't have the figures, or she was just trying to, you know, chat a load of rubbish, just so that she can try and make it look good.
Yeah.
But Nick Ferrari managed to, you know, rugby tackle her and say, well, it just doesn't make sense. You don't have the funding, or you're just making up the figures. So having people like that aren't going to be trustworthy, and they're not going to get the voters, because people are going to think, well, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't have any of the facts, you need the facts. So if you've got people running like yourself who can actually answer with how you're going to achieve a certain goal, then you know that's sort of person.
But I mean, I say that, but that's not necessarily what happens, because I can go, that is what I'm going to vote for. That's what I think is going to solve, at least in this term, or this solution, this period. But you've got to get 51% of the
you've got to get everyone else to agree with you.
Because otherwise you can't do it. And then, you know, your option are increase income tax, or you can do a territorial tax. You can wait. Hopefully,
there's going to have to be. There's going to have to be. You know, it's going to come. It's just, again, the GSC is a big debate for a lot of people. One of our sessions will be a pro, a con, and also someone that was very much against GSC, even went to the rallies, and now has completely turned when they've worked out the figures. So that will be one of our shows in the coming weeks as well. So we've got 3 different points of view. But I can't thank you guys enough for...
Thank you for having us.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate you helping us oldies.
No, you've given me some good stuff for how to up the game with getting more of the youth involved. So that, really helpful. Thank you.
I promise to register to vote in time for next time.
Well, we promise to hopefully make you engaged enough to do it.
That's the dream.
Yeah, you kind of let's compromise on that one. You do your bit.
Yeah.
The government will do their bit, and then everyone's good. Thank you so much again, guys.
No, it's been brilliant.
Thank you. And thank you all, guys. Our next one will be the following week. We will put it on. Make sure you do check out all the socials as well. So it's Sani and Sam, and it's Sani and Sam GSY as well for the YouTube channel. And have a great day, guys.